Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next session of PragatiE Vichaar Literature Festival. The person that we have with you, I want to say author Samir Soni, but somehow I'm struggling with saying author Samir Soni. I still have to say author and actor Samir Soni. An extremely recognizable face. You have all seen him on television. You have all seen him on the big screen. I will let him talk about himself a little bit. And it is amazing. He has come up with the book. We will talk a little more about the book, introduce you to what it is about, and I'm sure all of you would love to get your hands on it. So Samir, over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself a little more?
Okay, thanks, Deepak. Samir. I've been in the Bollywood or the entertainment business for over 20 years now. I've done countless number of feature films, which have things like China Gate, Bagban, Viva, I Hate Love Stories, and fashion. And I've worked with who's who, whether it's Amitabh Bachchan, Hema Malini, Madhuri Dixit. And I started as a fashion model. And I'm originally from Delhi. And I went to school in Delhi, but I finished my college in US. So I have a degree in finance. I worked on the Wall Street for a couple of years as a financial analyst until I decided to follow pursue my dream, which was acting, which I always loved. So I quit my job in US and I came back to India. And 3 years back, I directed my first film, which is available on Netflix, which I wrote and directed, which is called My Birthday Song. And now I'm out with my book, which is called My Experiments with Silence, Diary of an Introvert. And so that's where life is at. So, it's just expressing yourself, whether it's through acting, direction, writing. But this book is very, very dear to me because I think it is something that will contribute a lot more to society than just me as an actor has so far.
So from going to the US and studying finance, working in Wall Street, working as an actor, now working as a director and actually writing your own script, putting it out on Netflix, who would think you are an introvert?
Well, look, this is something which people need to understand or, clarify that when you talk about introversion and extroversion, it essentially, if you see a spectrum, there are two extremities in which what is the source of your energy comes from, the fuel, so to speak. An introvert will probably thrive from spending time on his own. That does not mean he doesn't like meeting people, but interacting with people might drain him of energy. Okay, so he might do it from time to time, and he might not be too comfortable with that because his source of energy comes from spending time with himself and exploring things. So that's an introvert. An extreme extrovert would be a person who doesn't like being on his own and thrives on having people around him. Okay, which doesn't mean that he would not be on his own time once in a while, but his source of energy would be company of people. So these are the two extremities. For example, to simplify that, if you were to an extrovert and introvert to go to a party or social gathering, when they both come back home, an extrovert probably will come all charged up and saying, yeah, man, we can do this. An introvert will come really tired and saying, oh my God, I spent so much of energy. Sure. So all of us lie somewhere in between where the source of the energy is concerned. But in terms of the profession you choose, you will find, people crossing over all kinds of things. I mean, introverts actually will make good people in creative field, in writing, painting, because an introvert tends to be an empath because they would think what the other person thinks a lot. Mm-hmm. So they are more sensitive. So in terms of creativity, whether it's acting or writing or direction or anything, they will be much more sensitive. So they can be pretty good at it. But to survive that business or that world, you have to have very thick skin because you're also, like you said, you'll be judged all the time. So when you look at that, you said, what is an introvert doing here? But I think you'll be surprised at the amount of people that are introverts in this business, but they kind of, to protect themselves, have this facade of being aloof or whatever. So I think so for me, it works out really well because to me, my work is my way of expressing. It's an outlet. Mm-hmm. It's almost, like a therapy session for me when I'm acting. So it works out well.
Sure. So what do you do to recharge yourself? I mean, when you feel drained or when you are in a session were more extrovert, or you're required to mingle with people?
Firstly, is to recognize what the issue is, because for the longest time, I thought there was something wrong with me, very honestly. When I would go to a social gathering, I would start sweating, I will have panic attacks, and I'm like, "Arey yaar, kahan phas gaye, kahan kya bolunga?" And I could not understand what is the reason. That how can you just go to a social gathering for 1 hour and get tired? It's not like you're doing a marathon. What is tiring about it? Okay, so I had to question myself. Then you learn to manage your energies, because in the end, I believe that you have only a certain amount of energy, and how you spend that energy depends on you. So I will offset every time I'm in a social gathering, I will offset that with a fair amount of time on my own as well. You need to balance it out, because being in a social gathering sometimes is unavoidable.
Sure.
You need to have enough energy resource to do that. And yeah, that's so, understanding yourself and own limitation, what your weakness and what your strengths are, or what you're more comfortable with, that helps you a lot. Yeah.
Sure. So you have written a book which is called as My Experiments with Silence. And in that you have talked about a variety of different levels of stress and specifically depression that you went through. Can you talk a little? I mean, and once again, just like people may not think of you as an introvert, they would look at your life story and they would say, this guy's gotta be, always high on life, considering he's been so successful. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
See, I mean, incidentally, I was reading like a biography of Rishi Kapoor, and he was talking about himself. And it turns out, when his film, I think Amar Akbar Anthony or another film released, he was in his lowest phase of his life.
Mm-hmm.
When he had these two huge hits, because he was dealing with some other issues. He was dealing with, listen, how come nobody recognizes him? Because you think of Amar Akbar Anthony, you think of Amitabh Bachchan. You see Kabhi Kabhi, you think of Amitabh Bachchan or Shashi Kapoor. So he was like, where is my contribution? So I think everybody has their own battles to fight. How people perceive you or perceive your work is very different from how you feel.
Sure.
Because I am not seeing myself through the eyes of the viewers or the audience. I can't do that even if I want to. I'm unable to do that. So everybody has their own battles to fight. Like, what about this and what about that? So I also had some kind of personal and professional issues that I had to deal with. At one point in time, it kind of collided, and it affected me very deeply at a personal level, not really at a professional level. I could still function, but I was quite tired of this whole attitude of running away or escaping from issues.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say, "Chal yaar, come on, let's have a drink. Hey, come on, let's just go out. Let's catch a movie." Okay? Or they'll say, you think too much. So I was like, "Nahi yaar, I want to get to the bottom of the issues. What are these issues? Why do I feel what I feel?
Mm-hmm.
What is wrong? What is not wrong?" You can't keep. Then I came to this huge revelation that about me being an introvert, and by and large, we live in an extroverted world. And the key thing that I came up with is that, is your dream really your dream? Or is that the dream that you were sold as a child?
Sure.
Right? In terms of, everybody says, when you talk about success, you'll say the image you have of a person who has a lot of money, who's famous, has a great lifestyle, is probably going on a cruise or something and stuff like that. But that has nothing to do with happiness.
Sure.
So to understand, so a lot of our generation who's grown up, our parents have said, come first in the class, get a good job, get this. And you always assume once you do that, you will be happy. But that has got nothing to do with happiness. If that was the case, every rich man would be the happiest man in the world, and they're not. So to me, it was trying to come to the bottom of that. What is it that makes me happy? What makes me think that if people like me, that makes me feel good?
Sure.
So that was the kind of things I was exploring and writing and stuff. And I wasn't willing to go for a shortcut and, just chal chhod yaar, forget it. And that period actually lasted me till now, in terms of it paid off, that I'm far more comfortable in who I am, what I am. At least I know what I'm dealing with.
Sure. So your book is, it's a seemingly unfiltered collection of your daily thoughts about how you felt about things. what are your usual strategies for dealing with all the negativity or negative thoughts that would come?
See, look, first and foremost is that, which is an exercise I did when I said my experiment with silence, was that I did not react on my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Like we say, our brain, our mind is part of us. It is not us.
Sure.
Right? The only job of your mind and your brain is to protect you. So every time you're doing something new, it will say, "Arey, ye kiya to this will happen, this might happen," which is based on history,
Sure.
which has nothing to do with reality or future. So that's the job of the mind. But if you listen to your mind all the time and let mind lead your life, then you will not try anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mind might hold on to old pain, injury, or the future fears. So my first exercise was that I will not react to my mind. So when that silence comes, when you're sitting quietly for say 1 hour, not doing anything, just sitting, and your brain is saying, "Acha, yaar, usko phone kar lete hain. Let me check what's on TV. Acha, what's the news? What is this?" And he said, "No, I will not react. Let the thoughts come, let the thoughts go. I will not react on the thoughts. And after I have spent my time, then if I want to, I will." For example, you have an urge, like for youngsters, it happens, they're waiting for their boyfriend to call or their girlfriend to call. They'll check their phone 100 times. So the idea was to you be in command of your own thoughts and saying, "Okay, I can't stop my thoughts. I can't control my thoughts, but I can control my reaction to my thoughts."
Sure. Sure.
That is one thing. And the way I protect myself from any negativity is simply that I create a bubble of positivity around me. That's just my nature. I will not let any negative thoughts come in. Even if somebody starts a conversation with something, "Oh, so-and-so said this or did that," I'm like, "Okay, I don't want to hear about this, please." Because that stays with you. And I don't have enough time and energy to be thinking about negative. I mean, I'd rather channel that energy into doing something positive and doing something creative. So that's how I do it. It's not, so basically I create a bubble and stay away from people, because a lot of people carry a lot of baggages and negativity who want to pull you down.
Sure. So talking about your book, how much has the journaling that you have done? I mean, it looks like you used to keep a diary. How much has that journaling helped you in your journey of mental health?
Oh, tremendous. I cannot emphasize the importance of that. It has been like a game changer for me, because firstly, it gets things out of your system. Okay. And then eventually when you kind of writing, it's getting you out of the system, and also somehow they align themselves to a conclusion.
Sure.
Because if you were to take a thought, the worst thing you can do is not do anything with it. Let it rot. Second thing, you talk to a person who's not equipped to deal with it.
Sure.
Right? Your friends are not equipped. Your family members are not equipped, because they can't. They're too close. They don't have time. They don't have patience. At best, they say, "Don't worry, it's going to be okay."
Sure.
So seeking help from a counselor, for example, which I did. I did meet counselors and discuss with them what is going on. So you can go to the basics of it. But in that journey, journaling was the most important thing. That after that, I had whatever I was writing. Say if I had a thought in my mind, I'll just keep writing. By the end of the passage, I would have come to some kind of conclusion.
Sure.
So instead of going in circles, you would come to some kind of conclusion, and you can free your mind of that. So I give a double thumbs up to journaling, and I think it's a must. It's very important.
Okay, great. And those journals that you have written have actually become part of this particular book.
Correct.
Okay. What I want to, and so that essentially means that you have actually at least read what you wrote once. What I want to know is it that you used to go back and read these journals more frequently every once in a while, or they were written and then you read them again when you were working on the book?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Once I finished writing, because this whole process was almost 2 years. And by that time, I thought there was some kind of conclusions I had come around to, saying, okay, had come to terms with certain things, and I was comfortable. It had served its purpose. And then I kind of put it away. But I was very aware that what was in it was of great importance one day, simply because the thoughts, the emotions were honest, sincere, and raw. They were not cultivated for somebody else. Right. So normally and also when you look back in hindsight, when something had happened, over a period of time, that thing kind of loses its impact and importance.
Sure.
So when I had finished that, I knew what I had written was of some importance and would be constructive sometime in future.
Sure.
And even in between, I was approached for to write a book. I toyed with the idea. I wasn't mentally prepared. But during pandemic, with everything going crazy around us, with people dealing with so much of mental health, anxieties and depression and stuff, then when I was approached by Om Publishing to write memoirs, I said, look, I'm not interested in writing memoirs, but I have this piece that I've written, which are prose and poetry, which I think might strike a chord with a lot of people who are struggling. And they read it and they loved it. And they said, that's, fantastic. And then we built a book around it. That was, the whole process.
So you talk about how seeking validation from outside by doing well, being kind, and making others happy, to constantly seek happiness is never enough. What do you think is true happiness, and how important of a role does self-love play in it?
Oh, God. Happiness to me is the most important thing, however you choose to define it. Whatever your barometer of thing is. People put more emphasis on success. I don't like the word success because I think it comes with its own connotations. Success implies several other things which need not be true. For example, Michael Jackson was a big successful pop star. Was he a happy pop star? No. Would we want to be in his place? No. So then what good is that success?
Sure.
Right? So why should I desire to be successful in which there's a good chance that success will not lead to happiness?
Sure.
Right? Now the second question comes in, what is happiness? Okay. You might do a certain thing where I act and people give me a response and I feel good. And that makes me happy. But then the question comes is that why is it that when people appreciate me, I feel good? Let's take a step further. So somewhere deep down, you are seeking validation. Right? If people say, oh, you're good and you feel good and stuff like that, then your happiness starts becoming dependent on those people.
Sure.
Which cannot be the answer because they're there today, they might not be there tomorrow. Then you dig deeper, then why is it this need that you have?
Sure.
Then you realize to the conditioning you've been brought up that when as a child, when you do well in school, then your parents say, my good son or my good daughter, lovely, very good, very good. And you associate love, that validation with success, succeeding.
Sure.
Whereas that never really meant to you anything. What was important to you was the love.
Sure.
But you thought I would get love because whenever I do this, I get love. So I should keep doing this and do this really well. Although by itself, it has no value to you. It's like everybody says, climb Mount Everest. It's not like you want to climb Mount Everest, but it's just that maybe you can. And when you do it, people love you and you say, hey, that's great. But then it makes you think, what if you spend your entire life chasing Mount Everest and you reach the top of Mount Everest and you really don't like the view?
Sure.
Then you realize you spent your entire life getting validation from people simply because you probably never got it when you were a child and you did the things for the wrong reason.
Sure.
So happiness to me is doing what you want to do for the right reasons and not for the wrong reasons. So
Sure. When you say happiness is doing what you like and doing it for the right reasons, I guess a clear problem that comes into my mind is our education system, our upbringing, our basic node of parenting, the lowest grade of conversations that we go through as a child are all talking about how do you become successful. In fact, let me elaborate on that a little bit. As I mentioned, I do some bits and pieces of mental health work. We have started a new concept called as soul wellness. I was recently having a conversation with a very senior psychologist who made a point that, in school time, do not worry about how the student is performing in academics. Worry about finding out the true talent of the child. And while, a lot of times, and I'm not disagreeing with that thought, but I had a follow-up to that. What about a child who at that age doesn't have a talent? I actually know my best friend from school days, and I'm sure he will be watching this episode. My best friend from school days, flunked class 7th. And he wasn't really good in sports or anything. So there was no, real talent in the talent sense of the word that you could look at. He's an extremely successful businessman, married with a kid who, and an amazing family. And he's one of the people that I go for anytime I require some counseling or anytime I require some support, or, and he's amazingly happy. Now, is this that something at the core needs to change when we think about mental wellness or mental health, and it needs to start right at the front, right in the childhood? Or is there something else that you would recommend that people should look at?
No, this is just fantastic. You raised 2, 3 fantastic points, and I totally agree with. Firstly, point number one, being academically great does not mean anything in your long run.
Mm-hmm.
Albert Einstein failed.
Sure.
Okay. As you grow older, you realize it doesn't really matter what grades you got on 10th standard, 9th standard.
Yep.
In fact, we find out that we realize that how you deal with people becomes far more important sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in any case, those grades are not that important. So putting that much emphasis on that, to me, is futile. Number one. Number two is that saying that person does not have any talent is still better than pushing himself into a wrong direction, in which he would then feel that he lacks something.
Sure.
Because you're setting in a target for him, saying, because we can't figure out what talent you have. We don't know what you really want. We can't figure out, we're not well equipped. Okay, study. Now you're not doing well in studies. Now the poor chap is thinking, Arey yaar, I flunked. Now he's feeling bad. Now he's developed a complex, and now the mental issues start.
Sure.
So at least even if you're not aware of the talent, you give them time to discover.
Sure.
Being able to, discuss things with people, being able to sell people certain things or inspire people, these are skills at a childhood you can't measure.
Sure.
The greatest speakers, you can't tell them in childhood what they would be.
Sure, absolutely.
But definitely what is the issue, what actually is happening is, India is still an emerging country, right? Like I said. So we are dealing with the issues that the earlier generation dealt with, which was making roti kapda makan.
Sure.
Right? That was the most important thing for them, and they, not knowing any better, said better yahi karna hai.
Sure.
That is the more important thing. So if half your life is you are concentrating on roti kapda makan, you can't think of finer things of happiness.
Sure.
But that is too abstract. What do you mean happy? Khana hai na, gaadi hai na, ghar hai na, theek hai na yaar. We can't think of those things. Abroad, where they have dealt with the roti kapda makan, now they're thinking, okay, I've got roti kapda makan, now what? I have the BMW and I have the house. I'm still not happy. Now what do we want to do? Which is happening in India in cities, where people who are far more affluent, their basic needs have been met. Now they're looking for something more. How many cars can you buy?
Sure.
How many big houses? How many vacations?
Sure.
Sooner or later you say, what more?
Sure.
So that is why in India we still struggle, because major portion of India is just struggling that you should have good enough education to get a job.
Sure.
Uske baad you deal with your happiness and your anxiety and your depression. As long as the stomach is full. But yes, having, like for my daughter who's 9 years old, the only thing I teach her is know what makes you happy. I don't use the word success. I don't care. Are you happy? And so you chase that, what makes you happy. And in terms of how you should conduct your life, it is you behave with others how you would like to be them to behave with you. Sure. That will make sure you're a decent human being. Okay. And you chase what makes you happy. There's no value system. Like I said, we are here not to raise children. You raise animals.
Yeah.
You raise cows and buffaloes, not children. Yeah. We are here just to support them and let them flourish in whichever direction they want to go.
Sure.
So we can create an environment in which they can blossom.
Sure. So in your life, what would be that one incident, if it hadn't happened, you would have felt, I can't use the word felt successful with you. You are extremely successful. You would have felt happier if that hadn't happened, or if that had happened.
I would have felt happier if that had happened.
Or hadn't happened. So some that instance in your life, if you could kind of recall.
Okay. Which the turning point, so to speak.
Yes.
The turning point for me was working on the Wall Street. Because God was kind to me that at a very young age, I was recruited from my college to work on the Wall Street. So now I have, at a very young age, high-paying job. I'm living in New York. My house overlooks the Statue of Liberty, and I'm miserable.
Sure.
Normally, it would take another human being another 15, 20 years to reach that stage.
Sure.
I reached that really early because I got fair amount of money and misery together. So I said, okay, there is a problem here. If I have all the money that I need, no one from my college has got this kind of a job. Okay,
Sure.
and I'm living here. Everyone around me and my family members and my friends are envious of me, saying, wow, man, you live in New York, you work in Wall Street. But deep down, I'm unhappy.
Sure.
So then I decided that what is it that's going to make you happy? Let's question this. Because this will go on. Now, Abhi, you're making $500,000, then you'll make $1 million, then you make whatever million. Life is going to go that way only now. But now you've captured right in the beginning here, this path is not working for me.
Sure.
That much I'm clear. So to me, then I came to the conclusion that what would make me happy is that if I did something, which even if I wasn't paid for it, I'd still do it.
Sure.
And the answer was acting. So I quit my job overnight and came back to Bombay to struggle. And I've been doing that since for the last 20 years. So.
Well, while you say that, a lot of people would look at you and say, well, you were successful back there and you came here and you became successful here. So, here, what changed or what was the turning point here after you became successful? What was the turning point for you?
See, it's not, look, like I said, I don't like the word successful because I don't know what that means.
Sure.
Perception and reality could be two different things.
Sure.
Here, the thing is that if something you truly love and enjoy, then you're no longer thinking of the end result. It is not a means to an end.
Sure.
In itself is the joy. I want to do that perfect scene. Okay. I'm not thinking if that scene is good and the film does well, then I get another film and then I'll become a big actor. No. Sure. My joy is right there in front of the camera, and that till date, I enjoy that.
Sure.
What comes with it, I'm not comfortable with that. It's like, okay. No. But the fun is that because for that moment, and there's a personal reason why I enjoy that, because when I'm acting and I'm playing another character, I get a break from myself.
Sure.
I'm somebody else, but through that person, I'm expressing myself.
Sure.
Samir gets to express his feelings, and then so when you can just truly be in that moment, and because of that, you are also do well, and also you get that respect, then it's like as good as it gets.
Sure.
But it's not easy in terms of for that 5 minutes or 1 hour in front of the camera, there'll be months and months of struggles and depression in which you're waiting for it to happen. But then everything comes with its own challenges.
Sure. So can you tell us a little bit more about your experience of getting your book published and your experience of getting, the promotions around it?
See, getting the book published was relatively easy because, I had 2-3 publishing houses who were keen. But then everybody had a twist that they wanted more of this and they wanted more masala and more this. And with OM, I found a little synergy that even they said, look, this is the kind of book we want. So that was good. So publishing the book wasn't really that difficult. I mean, because maybe I'm a known face, so it was easy.
Sure.
But after that, it was it still is very difficult to get the book out there. Sure. Because I guess in their own way, the publishing houses, depending on you, because you're a known face to sell the book.
Sure.
Right? Whereas that is not my forte.
Sure.
I'm not good at selling books because I never sold books in my life.
Sure.
Right? So that is the tricky part and the sad part. And especially that's where I feel publishing houses should come together and kind of give people platforms and stuff. At least make it available to people so they can, know that it exists.
Sure.
So that, and publishing money-wise obviously doesn't have much. You do it because your passion.
Sure.
So that's an uphill task. I mean, like for me for acting, you write because you want to write. I mean, I've been to various conferences and they say, look, you don't make a living in being a writer.
Sure.
You would do that because you want to do it. Your day job should be something else, unless you become one of the famous writers. So yeah, publishing wasn't difficult at all. It is spreading the word, in which you have to interact a lot with people.
Sure.
And I don't like selling my book, but I have to talk about it because to me, it's not about me. Because I'm very passionate about what I've written.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many people out, especially in pandemic. I lost a dear friend who actually took his own life. And he was suffering with something. But because in this extroverted world, there's so many people who are really sensitive, don't have a voice,
Sure.
and they get squished because they're made to feel that you're not good enough if you can't do that.
Sure.
So to me, that breaks my heart that there's some kid in 10th standard or a college who, poor guy, probably just looks like to read and write and just wants peace. And everybody thinks, hey, nerd at house. That guy's a hero, man, bro. You see the six pack?
Sure.
That six pack culture, which is coming all around us,
Sure,
is something I definitely want to fight against. That's why the book is there in the raw form it is, that, I can also be like that. That's why I talk about counseling, because you need to, I say, wear introversion as a badge.
sure,
If you're an introvert, that means you're actually a very sensitive person as well.
sure.
So yeah, selling the book is tough. I'm still, every day I'm like hoping, because in US we don't have a hardback. It's only Kindle because the publishing house doesn't have a reach there. This is the kind of book which will do extremely well internationally. Simply because of mental health. And that's why I didn't put my face on the cover, simply because I didn't want it to be related to me. It's about the thought, the idea.
Sure. But your face would sell better.
I don't know. It would go either ways. Some people would buy the book for my face. Some will not buy because of my face. And some would like it because of my face, and someone will not like it because of my face.
I've been doing book cover design for a couple of years, and I can tell you a book, if I was to design this, I will absolutely put your face on it. Absolutely.
Because we struggled a lot with it. And my reason was, this actually gives it longevity in terms of, even if you want to gift the book, you may or may not gift the book with somebody else's face. But a book like this, which it's being put in the category of Ikigai, or some notes to myself, which was an old book.
Sure.
So that is the category space that I'm fighting for: mental health, fitness, whatever. So I hope you're wrong, but because I can't change it anymore. So that's, and I love the cover. I love the cover of
the I actually have the book right in front of me.
There we go.
I'm absolutely not suggesting that it wouldn't do well. I'm just saying I would sell a few more copies if I have your face on it.
My wife will totally agree with you, because she was like, Neelam was like, but how can you not put your own face? I mean, it's your book. I said, no. And then I was being very, no. I'm very true to what I'm saying. Maybe I was wrong. We'll find out soon.
No, I think your thought is fine, that without your face on it, it becomes more true.
And more universal.
Absolutely. That
it doesn't become, because I didn't want to have any flavor of Bollywood.
Yep.
I didn't want it to be, say, another Priyanka Chopra book or another so-and-so book. Not that they're bad books, but they immediately isolate a certain section of people who read books.
Sure.
They will say, nahi. A true reader will say, only those who are a fan and are curious about it. I didn't want to lose those people who are readers.
Sure. So not just on other people's books. In fact, my first and perhaps the only book launched in the month of September, I ensured that it has my face on it, because I would like to think there are, quite a few people, at least people who have worked with me, people who have seen me over the years. I've been running a digital agency for the last 15 years. So I thought at least, there will be enough crowd that would want to buy the book, and so.
You can look at either side. To me was that, yeah, but that might limit me also. Sure. I would lose this big audience, but I haven't reached that audience anyway, unfortunately, as yet. In US, I'm still hoping to make some inroads somewhere in which, it is. So it's, it will go either way.
Sure. So Samir, we're getting towards the end of it. What message would you like to leave, or what message would you like to give to people who may be going through similar struggles? And, similar struggles in some ways are, struggles of plenty, but, unhappy inside, or kind of not feeling fulfilled inside.
My advice to them would be, firstly, don't brush it under the carpet. Anyone who says, don't think, don't do this, be proactive about it. Because there's a good reason, and this will not go away. This will keep coming back. You might be able to avoid the issue temporarily. After a few years, that will again raise its ugly head, because this is something, if there's something bothering you deep down, there's something very, truthful and a big part of you. So do not brush it under the carpet. Seek help, which is to say, not just by friends. Go see a counselor. It doesn't hurt. I've never been to a counselor and come back home unhappy. Okay. Seek a counselor and that counselor will guide you whether you need to go to see a psychiatrist. Also, if you're dealing with some issues, to have an objective opinion is good, right? Because your friends can't be objective. They will either say what they think you want to hear.
Sure.
Right. So seek help. And secondly, that, like I said, I mean, introversion, which is what I deal largely with, is that we live in an extroverted world, but that doesn't mean anything. It's just like, you don't have to be like anybody else.
Sure.
You just have to discover who you are and be able to take pride in it.
So discover who you are, take pride in it, and definitely read My Experience with Silence, The Diary of an Introvert by Mr. Samir Soni. Samir, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for accepting to come on PragatiE Vichaar Literature Festival. I'm sure our audience would want to hear a lot more from you. I'm sure there will be a lot of people who will ping you, message you, DM you, comment somewhere and want to reach you and ask more. I wish you all the best with this book, and definitely wish you all the best with everything else, with the acting that you do, with the direction that you have recently gotten into. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me on your show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.